Hi, James. The question, I thought of this. I thought we'd have two opinions on something. For let's say you're a guy, you're a strong dude, right? But you haven't really been in let's say a scuffle or a fight, let's say since high school, right? And where you're living now is like starting to change. It's starting to become more vibrant. It's starting to become more diverse and inclusive. This is the whole Western world, not just the repulsive Anglosphere that we live in, but also the continent. So I will not let the French off the hook. They betrayed me, right? And of course the Germans are just a ghost people now, but there's still some people alive. There's still some people trying to be like, what do I do now? So I guess how do I frame it? Let's say you're this person, anybody, anyone. Um, what would you train on your own? And obviously, there's a million things you can train, but like, what would your advice be to somebody? Um, Obviously, I'm trying to think of it. Hand to hand combat and whatnot is kind of silly with the paradigm we're going into. But what are your thoughts on it? If like, hey, I want to do something, I want to be able to defend myself, obviously, without firearms. We'll use that as the
Okay.
question.
Well, the key part of the question for me is something that you could train on your own. So that limits it a lot. If you had the opportunity to train with other people, I'd say the first thing would be um, just go and do some boxing so you can learn how to take a beating, because you're not talking about dealing with a fight, you're talking about being deceived into getting sucker punched.
Right.
So you're going to have to be able to survive an initial punch. It might start out with you being punched in the back of the head while you're standing in line somewhere.
Yeah.
So, but that's out the window because we're talking about stuff you can do on your own. And I would use something that's halfway between boxing and wrestling. If you're talking unarmed, and it would utilize something that everybody would have access to. Anybody that lives in a habitation, or even people that are homeless, have access to doorways. So I would do checking exercises in the frame of a doorway. If you're living in even an apartment, that's like the only thing you could hit in the apartment where you don't have to worry about ruining it. You could practice slapping the hardwood frame of the doorway, and you could also practice checking it and moving around it. Pulling yourself
Right.
around it, pushing yourself off of it, and just staying in the doorway. And uh, that's an exercise that, if you have a little bit of an imagination, you could develop the ability to move offline when you're being attacked. If you practice it enough, it'll come into play when you actually do get
Right.
attacked.
Well, you like the idea of moving around people, not staying in front of them, because whether it's punches or something else, you like being around them, being behind them, being on the side of them is always better. So you recommend the doorway, and not punching it with fists, with your palms, with your hands, slapping. So all
Yes,
right,
and
okay.
that's something that could really help you out against armed and unarmed attack, grappling attempts, striking attempts on you,
Yeah.
and uh, it's practical. Uh, the more experience you have actually doing things like boxing and wrestling, the more use you'll be able to make
Yeah,
out of
yeah,
it,
yeah.
because you'll have reference points.
Right. So, but it's like if you still have to start where you are, and with what you have, and yeah, okay. And in terms of, let's see, I'm trying to think, objects. Let's say you live in a country where you can't have this, you can't have that, you can't have nothing. Which, by the way, America, oh, you guys got everything there. That's the places where you would actually need the weaponry are the very places you're not allowed to have the. Um, so in terms of like, let's say someone flat, I mean objects. Let's say, but I'll make it even better. Like you're dealing with maybe two or three people from another a part of the world, and they like to have large. They like to pull out machetes or long sticks or whatever, or even a blade in their pocket. If you're just a regular dude in these areas, like what kind of objects would you recommend to use, and in what training, like what training method would you advise for that?
You showed me an interesting video just a little while ago where a young fellow with a skateboard
Oh,
successfully defended himself against an oppressed individual who was holding a knife.
yeah.
What immediately happened is police were on the scene, and the first thing they did was put the defender on his knees and hold a gun on him
Yeah.
for using a skateboard to defend himself against a knife. So the main thing that the political systems have against the use of objects to defend yourself is the successful use of those objects. They want you to be injured so that they may then do what they're designed to do, which is to punish the offending party.
Right.
Okay, it's we live under punishment systems.
That's right.
So you want something that's as innocuous as possible, and I like a jacket,
Right. Not a towel.
umbrellas,
Not a towel like in Deutschland, but
a jacket, uh, umbrellas, and the magazine, the roll-up magazine,
right?
and the book.
The rolled
Okay,
up.
a book can be used really effectively to defend yourself. So you want something that looks as far away from a weapon as you can get.
A rolled up magazine can knock you the f out, bud. I know. I felt it.
Yeah, I've been drunk.
Yeah, you'd be surprised. Take a roll up magazine, right? Obviously, a thicker, thicker the better. Roll it up. And you're gonna smack the dog in the face with it. No, you're not gonna whack with it. You're gonna do what my man with the skateboard did. Notice what he did. He did a two-handed thrust, just like you recommend with the umbrella. So that guy knew what he was doing. That was actually a really good vid. If you haven't seen it, it's very surreal because there's like a British vacation commercial in the background on the 125th Street station. It's very surreal. And the cops, you know that the cops were not Americans. The one cop was definitely Jamaican. So this is the world we're going into. So me, all I could say, obviously, I'm not as experienced as Mr. LaFond, but that means I've only been like concussed like 5 or 6 times in my life. And I've been, I've had my blood spilled, let's say, and I've been in stuff. One-on-one, unarmed guy, front headlock, especially for a strong guy. Front headlock every time. Number one, takedown, Boxing, just cover, and get him in the front headlock. No, everyone lets you pull their head down. Once you have the front headlock, you can do you can snap them down. Number one takedown is the snap down in wrestling. You can knee them in the head. You can choke them. You can front neck lock them. You can pancake them, or what they call it, cow catch them. You can take his back on the ground. You can, you could ram him into his head into the ground as you're up. There's a lot of cool things you can do with that. I would recommend that for a strong guy. The front headlock. No, everybody lets you get their head. They always let you get their head and pull it down. So otherwise, unless they've wrestled, which And in terms of weaponry, like I would just say, yeah, like everything he said.
Forensically, the most effective tool for defending against a machete or any other edged weapon is a chair or a stool.
Chair or stool. So let's say
if you're outside and there's a bunch of cafe seating, you just want to be in the habit of picking up, particularly if you regularly walk a route, you want to be in the habit of looking around and noting. For instance, when Bob and I walked in Utah,
Oh, don't say
We,
Utah.
yeah,
Don't say Utah.
we walked the same route every night, and I noticed that my favorite item was on a certain bend in the road, and it was a piece of petrified wood about this long,
Uh,
and it was perfect. But if you walk through a business district, you pay attention to the things that are around that can be picked up and used to defend yourself.
like I say, a nice leather jacket or something. It seems almost like, and this will segue into something else. It almost seems like the best bet for the future we're going into is to look at those old, like 1600, 1700, like Italian manuals of these guys, how they would go at it. Now, of course, we're not going to have a rapier, but it was always what was in the other hand that was interesting. A lamp to kill people's night vision, a cloak, obviously, the different ways to use the cloaks, a dagger in the other hand, a buckler in the other hand, a case of rapiers where you have, two things in your hands. It's interesting. I think, there's a lot to go with that. But all right, that was just our thoughts on what you would do. So, like I said, boxing, of course, always. But, if you're a big, strong dude, use your elbows, to block and hit with a front headlock. And with people on the street, jacket. So, and whatever else is in your hand, like you said, if you, let's say you're at Maki, that's in reference. If you're at Maki, look at the stools you're sitting on. Just say, all right, man, stay safe out there. How did you survive Utah? How did you do? How did you guys do that? So, yeah.